Hooray for Pentecost, that crazy scintillating Pentecost. Happy Pentecost, everyone. I am...
You are what? You point to me.
What
You're
am
sitting
I?
next to me. No, I'm sitting behind you. I'm not going to be seen today because after 2 years of living in Sacramento, and besides it's a spur of the moment, but Lon says we are in show business, so we can do anything. He's calling me Babylon today. I'm not prepared, barely inspired, but I'm always talking about the Holy Spirit. It's my thing. Anyway, but I'm not going to be seen because I'm allergic to Sacramento, and I'm trying to look like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
Excellent. The pollen is crazy here. It's absolutely crazy.
It's not bothering Lon hardly at all. He just sneezes occasionally.
It's not that it doesn't bother me. It's just
No,
that
it
I'm
doesn't bother-
insensitive.
He'd notice, believe me. He'd be a big baby. I'm glad he's not affected.
Okay, well, it is Pentecost. It's Memorial Day weekend, but as holidays go, we celebrate Pentecost more than we celebrate
Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day's tomorrow. We can do
It's tomorrow. We'll do something tomorrow.
Something naughty tomorrow for Memorial Day.
So, but it is Pentecost. Pentecost has turned into something absolutely wonderful and mystical and hermetic and magical and everything else. But I don't think it actually started. Well, who knows? But I'm just going to read you.
It never started.
It never started. It's a phenomenon.
Oh.
That has nothing to do with.
It has everything to do with everything. But it has nothing to do with this.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Okay. Now, Pentecost doesn't come from the Gospels. Okay, the four Gospels. And the four Gospels don't really come from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They come God knows where. The event of Pentecost is in Acts.
The description of it. The event of Pentecost.
The description of the event, the biblical or the scriptural description of Pentecost comes from Acts, the Acts of the Apostles. And as many of you know, the Acts of the Apostles was supposedly written by a guy that never ever even met the historical character who we've come to view as Jesus. Never met him. Fell off his head. I mean, he fell off his ass. Literally, he fell off. Not Jesus, but maybe he did too. But Paul, he wasn't even called Paul, he was called Saul, and he was a freaking assassin, okay? And he fell off of his ass and hit his head, okay, and got a brain injury, and then all of a sudden made up what we now think of as Christianity.
And most, and parts of it are probably really inspired, but most of it, poor thing, he's on a terrible guilt trip, and he just wanted to share that with everyone.
Paul's issues have become the issues of Western civilization. But that doesn't take away the fact that he was a strange kind of mystic, too, okay? But so were many monsters of history. The Vicar's being naughty today. I'm going to just read the short little verse that it comes from the...
I was wondering if I was here for a reason.
Now, remember this was written by Paul, And usually when I have a knee-jerk reaction when I hear the word Paul, I go, be that as it may, the guy got himself published. When the day of Pentecost had come, now that's 50 days after Jesus disappeared, after the crucifixion, after his body mysteriously disappeared. 50 days after all of that, 50 days where Paul's going to later tell us he flew up into the sky, disappeared, the apostles got themselves together. Now, the reason they say Pentecost came, we're supposed to say, oh, that's 50 days after the event. When the day of Pentecost had come, they, meaning the 12 disciples, they're all men.
It's not the Catholic version.
The Catholic version's got the Virgin Mary sitting there too. So somebody was trying to repair this story later on, okay? They were all together in one place. I believe it was a disco.
It was a coffee shop.
It was during the day. Oh, it was a coffee shop.
Because everybody's inspired by coffee.
And suddenly, this is a pretty cool story, though. When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. And suddenly a sound came from heaven like a rush of a mighty wind. Now remember, spirit. The word spirit in many languages is the same as breath or wind.
Yes.
Okay. The rush of a mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared to them tongues as of fire, distributed and resting on each of them. Now, it doesn't say it resting on their heads, but that's always been the assumption. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. Now there were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. And at the sound of this multitude they came together, and they were bewildered because each one of them heard they speaking in his own language. And they were amazed and wondered, saying, are not all these who are speaking Galileans? That's almost an insult, in Jerusalem. Aren't they bumpkins? And how is it that we hear each of us in his own native language? And they give there's a big list of all of these other languages. And we hear them telling in our own tongues the mighty works of God. Okay, and they were amazed and perplexed, saying to one another, what does this mean? But others mocking said, they are filled with new wine. But Peter, standing with the 11, lifted up his voice and addressed them, men of Judea, and all who dwell within Jerusalem, let this be known to you, and give ear to my words. Sounds like Paul is putting words in his, that's another. But these men are not drunk, as you suppose, since it is only the 3rd hour of the day. It's too early to get drunk, is what he's saying. But this is what was spoken by the prophet Joel. And here's Joel's thing, and this is where it sort of ends today. And in the last days it shall be, God declares, that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh. And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. And your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Yea, and on my men servants and my maid servants in those days I will pour out my spirit, and they shall prophesy. And I will show wonders in heaven above and signs on earth below. Now, that's been used sort of as a continuation of where after the crucifixion and that event, the disciples were said, okay, now it's your job. Go forth and be my proxy preacher. But Constance has another
I completely forgot what I was going to say because I was listening to you, as usual.
And I wove
Sit up straight and get that chewing gum out of your mouth. And
I wove a hypnotic spell. I transported you to first century Jerusalem.
Yes.
You could smell the
I was
bread.
bored and my mind wandered. It was kind
Okay.
of like my parents said he hypnotized me over the phone to get married. Well, we kind of thought the Catholics thought it was a bit like that too, and not that I remember it. It was my favorite. It's my favorite Christian holiday because it's the one that can produce the best results of all of them. I think if you're going to have results, because I can see where it could produce world peace, and yes, and personal peace, of course, and world peace as well. But it's all the same thing. One will produce the other. We have language is symbols, and everybody speaks a different language. That's understood there. So it's hard to communicate. But even if we all speak English or the same language, those words do not mean the same to every person. The words mean something slightly different because of our experience in our experience period, whenever. And now that people are texting, we're losing a lot of even language. It's going to symbols that are really we're talking very vaguely to each other, and our communication is being lost. And it's hard to for people to get along when communication is completely lost and you think that you're all separate. But the thing about the Holy Spirit is that he's the translator kind of thing from across a gap that does not exist between us and God. And the us is one thing. So when Christians say, oh God, I'm going to say this and embarrass myself, there's only one Son of God, it means all of us. Because we're all it.
Yeah.
Or as Jesus said, I am he, as you are me, and we are all together.
Yes, that's in the book of John for sure.
Or Dr. Bronner says,
all
one. So anyway, when we let ourselves, I think all we have to do is pretty much be willing to listen and not try to make every decision ourselves, and listen to the Holy Spirit. We will be inspired, and when we are inspired, we are all united, and oh gosh, isn't that enough? But no, we are all united, and we will be able to communicate with the most important part of ourselves easy, and everything in our lives and in the world's life should be made easier. That's not really what I wanted to say, but I lost my train of thought again.
Well, the idea that this tongue of flame okay, descended on their crown chakras and inflamed them, literally like divine electricity. But that divine electricity was a single thing that united them all. The fact that their language was understandable by others is because communication truly never has been split up, has never. We're a singularity, and they got that for a moment. And you were going to say?
I was going to say, be inspired today. I'm going to leave and be the light of the world.
Oh, that's. Give us that quote from the modern Saint John.
I am he as you are me, and we are all together.
That's the light bulb that went off over the head, in our opinion, my opinion.
Or as Jesus said during the Last Supper, do this and remember you are me.
Okay. All right. Thank you, dear.
You're welcome. I'm going.
Thank you, Sister Constance.
You can put.
Now I can be naughty.
Yes.
No. Quickly, for the sake of magicians and Kabbalists and things like that, Hermeticists and people that aren't particularly stimulated by the religious aspect of these things, but they love the Kabbalistic aspects. Deity itself in Hermetic Kabbalism is often seen, or deity represented by the fourth sephirah on the Tree of Life, Hesed, the first thing under the abyss, has been associated with the demiurge, or the creator in manifestation, the creator god, Yod He Vav He. And you guys just criticize me all you want on my Hebrew pronunciation. My personal rabbi informed me that there is no correct Hebrew pronunciation. So just give it your best shot. Yod He Vav He. Okay? And in Hebrew it looks like that. Yod He Vav He. There's a He final at the end. And that's basically the big four-letter name of deity. And it's easy for us in this dimension to see that projected spatially into north, south, east, and west, and elementary in fire, water, air, and earth. And it is manifest reality and the laws and the dynamics of that. It's also four huge levels of consciousness. Starting at the bottom there is our meat consciousness, if you will. We're talking through that right now. And here is our and that's called Asaya, the world of Asaya, and it's our Nepish. Okay, that part of our soul. And then there is the Ruach, the part of us, the level of consciousness associated with our intellect and all of that. Okay, and that is the world of thought and imagination. And then above that is the Neshama. And the Neshama, they call it the soul intuition. And we're starting to have this in common with absolutely everyone on the planet. And if we're truly identifying with that level of consciousness, time and space lose their concrete reality for us. And this would be the life force itself. And so that elementally, fire, water, air, and earth. Okay. But something has to hold them together. something has to keep them apart. Okay? If those four things were in those areas of a pentagram, what's holding them all together and what's keeping them all apart simultaneously is this top point spirit. So we got Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, Spirit. And that spirit has been associated in what has developed as Christian mysticism as this dove. It was the dove of the spirit that impregnated Mary in the story. It's in Egyptian iconography, that's the vulture Ma'at. That's the descending spirit. Comes down from the supernal triad and vivifies the Holy Grail and us. That fire down there, that's the tongue of flame that sits upon every one of those disciples in the stories, crown chakra. It's like, now you're going to love this. I spared no expense. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yod, Hey, Shin, Vav, Hey. Jehovah becomes Yeshua. Okay, now there's no, please don't project any undue parochial message to that, but it is a message sort of aping a huge message. And that descent, when it descends on each of us as an experience of consciousness expansion, either permanent or temporarily, results in at least the temporary annihilation of the sense of duality. When Constance and I moved to Oregon for only 6 months, back in the late 60s, or 67 or even, we had been half-assed practicing meditation and yoga and reading lots and lots of Eastern mysticism and things like that. We were, and probably still are, what you would call hardcore self-examination seekers. And I wrote about the first time this happened to me. And it's very short, and that's what I'm going to leave you with here on Pentecost. This is from my book, My Life with the Spirits. While Constance soaked in a hot tub, I thought I'd sit and meditate near the fire and listen to some music. If it had been 6 months earlier, I would have also lit up a joint. But one of the first things we learned about Oregon was that marijuana and psychedelics were not readily available. For the most part, country hippies got high the old-fashioned way: yoga, pranayama, and natural food. I took off my boots and put on a Beatles album. Settled into a half lotus and took some deep breaths. I closed my eyes and used the familiar tracks of the music as a mantra. Everything seemed perfect. And the quotes from the music are all in italics here. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. Wow, I thought, that's just like something out of the Tao Te Ching. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Yeah, that's just like the Tao Te Ching. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy. Now, there was nothing unusual about projecting cosmic significance to popular music, especially that of the Beatles. But that night I was taking it particularly personally. Nothing you can make that can't be made. No one you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. The second time I heard the words, "It's easy," I felt as if I would burst. I was no longer listening to the stereo. The song had become nothing less than a direct communication from God to my soul. I was so thrilled that I squeezed my buttocks with a contorted shiver of religious ecstasy. Instantly, shivering pangs of intense tingling exploded in my abdomen and between my shoulder blades. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. Oh yes, the more I surrendered to the tingling, the stronger the tingling, and the more personal the lyrics became. Nothing you can know that isn't known. Nothing you can see that isn't shown. Nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It's easy. This time when God told me it was easy, the tingling burst like a balloon at the very top of my head. It was as if an egg of electric fire shattered on my crown and sent it scintillating goo slowly dripping over my head. All you need is love. Surrender, I told myself. All you need is love. Surrender, this is it. Let it happen. It won't happen unless you let it. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. Miraculously, I took my own advice. I let go. I surrendered to the tingling at the top of my head. As I did, it became so intense that everywhere it spread, it obliterated all sense of separateness. As it covered my head, I could no longer see, feel, or conceive of my head as being anything other than everything that was. Wherever the electric fire touched became everywhere, everything. I was becoming, universally, wall to wall, from head to toe. I could feel my lips, but I could also feel the air that touched my lips. And everything the air that touched my lips touched, and on until my lips lost all meaning except to serve as position for the perfect center of the cosmos. As I continued to surrender, it rapidly expanded to the back of my neck and down my spine to usurp the lesser tingling between my shoulder blades. From there it spread to my arms and hands. All you need is love. All together now. All you need is love. Everybody. All you need is love, love. Love is all you need. Almost with a thud, it reached the base of my spine and flowed into my legs and feet. But then I had no feet. The new I reached to the innermost, outermost corners of the universe, of space, time, and energies. The only thing that remained of old I was that part that observes, the part that realizes that it is the big whatever it is. Realizes that its fiery, blissful consciousness fills every nook and cranny of the one big whatever it is. Realizes that thisness is eternally this. But old I, the fleshy, fat, and blood-filled tumor at the center of the one big whatever it is, also realized that it was losing itself, realizing it was dying, realized that its lumbering crust hadn't taken a breath in a very long time. All you need is love. Love is all you need. Love is all you need. You know how the song ends with that repeated mantra building to a crescendo. The one big whatever it is didn't particularly care that the old I might be dying. Things were forever dying and being created in the one big whatever it is. It said to itself, old I is lucky to die united to the one big whatever it is. Isn't that the spiritual goal of all old I's? Old I was afraid. Maybe it was too soon to say goodbye to old I. I searched the immensity of everywhere to locate an old I hand or an old I foot. Movement might break the spell of reverie, the one big whatever it is held upon old I. But fearful as it was, old I loved being one with the one big whatever it is. So much that it felt like blasphemy, spiritual suicide, to leave this bliss. Fear triumphed. An arm moved, and in doing so voluntarily separated itself from the one big whatever it is. The arm lost the omnipresent tingle. Then the other arm moved. Wriggling feet were the next mutinous angels cast from paradise. I slumped forward and gasped for life, sucking in great waves of stinking air that caused my heart to race like a hummingbird's. The magic fire withdrew from all my extremities and lingered for a few last seconds on the back of my neck. Then it was gone. The stereo was silent. I opened my eyes to discover that a cat had shit in my boots. Happy Pentecost. Oh, I'll get a better shot of that. Happy Pentecost, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow for a Memorial Day message. Until then, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.